everyone. Welcome back to the Made for Money free training series. You are in for an awesome treat right now. We all are. I have with me Dr. Steve G. Jones. Dr. Steve is one of the world's leading experts in hypnosis. He is a board-certified clinical hypnotherapist who has written 25 books on hypnosis, the law of attraction, and weight loss. He is extensively called upon to work with Hollywood actors, writers, directors, and producers to help them stay on top of their game. And we are incredibly lucky to have grabbed him here today. Dr. Steve, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. It's an honor to be here.
Well, you know, it's not often that I have the world's leading expert on hypnosis held captive for 30 minutes, so I'm going to dive right in. I want to just briefly clear something up. A lot of people have a very skewed idea of what hypnosis is, and can you just briefly explain what it can do for us and how it can powerfully impact our lives?
Sure. If we realize that all of our actions come from our subconscious mind, and that those have been influenced ever since we were young, we realize that just as if we're looking at an iceberg, the majority of it is underwater. That would be the subconscious mind. That would be representative of that. And the tip of it is what we see above the water. We a lot of times think, well, that's all of us. But really, we are ruled by our subconscious minds. That's where our programs are. That's where all these old recordings are that we follow. So hypnosis works by getting in there and just reprogramming those.
Awesome. Now, a lot of people feel that they can't be hypnotized, that it just wouldn't work for them. Are there cases in which that's true? Do you have to be a believer?
No, you don't. I was talking about this in a radio interview earlier today in Los Angeles, and that came up. A caller called in and asked that same question. Harvard and Stanford got together and created something called the hypnotic scale of susceptibility. Now, I prefer the word suggestibility rather than susceptibility. But at any rate, they found that you can rank everyone on the planet on a numeric scale. You can assign a number value to how suggestible they are, and everyone falls on that scale. So I think of it like electrical conductivity. Everything on this planet will conduct electricity. Wood doesn't conduct it very well. Metal conducts it very well. So it's sort of like that with suggestibility, although the good news is that most people are fairly suggestible.
Great. That's good to know. And this might sound like a silly question, but I've actually been asked it before, and I don't know, is can you do it yourself?
Absolutely. Well, some people would say that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, and I would suggest that anyone who wants to do it themselves, instead of just talking to yourself into hypnosis, make a recording that you can listen to, because you tend to get very dreary under hypnosis and you want to fall asleep. So, and if you do, that's fine. You'll still get the suggestions. But if you're doing it yourself and you know you're saying the words yourself, well, the hypnotist has fallen asleep. If you're the hypnotist, so make a recording. But you absolutely can make your own recordings and do it yourself.
Great. Okay. So I want to get right to the heart of this. The core of this event is really about a balance between spiritual health and actual monetary wealth. And I know you've got an awesome thing going on right now about programming our inner millionaire. Can you take us through some steps, some basic steps that we can go through to do just that? Hello?
Yes, sorry about that. Affirmations are one of the best ways to do that. On Saturday Night Live, they have the guy who says, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. He does the affirmations, and people make fun of that. Well, it turns out that's actually real. I mean, that actually does work. So one of the best ways to reprogram yourself to become wealthy is to start talking positively about that. And just as in the earlier interview I did today, you've got to be specific. So if you want something, just name it. And one of the guys who was on the air with me said, well, I don't have enough money to pay for gas. I don't have gas money in my pocket. I wish I had gas money in my pocket. And somebody else in the studio handed him about $10. So he then had gas money in his pocket. And that sounds like a simplistic example, but that's really the way that it works when you start believing yourself and you start putting it out there in a very positive and specific way. What do you want? So you put that into affirmations. Always word them in the positive, word them in the here and now as if they've already happened. So instead of, I want this, what would be better would be to say, I have X amount of money in my pocket. Name the exact amount of money that you'd like to have. that's one of the best and easiest and fastest ways to get going on that road to financial success.
Now, what about bridging the gap between being so specific with what you want and sort of detaching from what your outcome looks like? How do we bridge that gap?
Well, I recommend reading the book Siddhartha by Herman Hesse. I think it's a great idea because in that book you learn how Buddha basically did that. He had kind of outcomes in mind. He was taking actions that led towards his outcome, but he was detached from the results. And it's really easy when you realize that you're probably not going to get everything you want right away. I mean, asking for gas money in your pocket and getting it right away, that does happen. And you can also ask for a lot more and get it right away. That does happen. But usually there's a delay. As Lisa Nichols says in the movie The Secret, there's a delay usually. So you should be specific about it, but realize that you should also detach from the results rather than focusing on, oh, I wish I had that. It becomes negative at that point because you develop anxiety about it. Put it out there, what you want, and let it go and wait for it to come back. That's the best way. Also, on a scientific level, your subconscious mind is programmed to look for those things in your environment. And if you start to doubt it and question it and kind of get desperate about it and so forth, it really works against it because then you're creating a negative expectation, which is that you really don't expect to get it anyway.
That actually is a great segue into my next question, and that's about the belief gap. You know, we all know we're supposed to think positive and, you know, sort of do our affirmations and our visualizations. What if your desired outcome is so far from your current reality? How do we shift our mind to a place where we can actually believe it's possible?
Well, I think the best way to do that is incrementally. You know, if you have zero money in the bank, asking for $10 billion might be a great idea. Yes, it'd be wonderful if you had it. But how about starting with something else? How about realizing that you can easily work your way up there? How about starting with $50,000 or even $50? You know, you don't have to win the world in one day. And by having these smaller successes, you can work your way up there. You know, I'm a firm believer that whatever you believe, you can achieve. So if you really believe that you can make $10 million, you will. Unfortunately, a lot of people really need that proof first that they can make some money before they start believing they can make a lot more money. So don't be afraid to chunk it down a little bit, to start a little smaller, realizing that you're on your way to working up to that.
Great. So it's about believing that anything is possible, but making it believable for you, a believable scale for you. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, even at a smaller level, sometimes people won't believe it. They'll say, oh, I have $50 in the bank, and they just don't believe it. But keep saying it. Even if you really don't believe it, just keep saying it, affirming it as if it's already happened. That way your subconscious mind notices the incongruency. It notices that what you say and what you have are not the same thing, and it looks for ways in your environment to make that happen, taking advantage of opportunities you have financially, sticking to things, staying in school, getting a better job, that kind of thing. You start taking actions without even realizing that that's why you're taking them.
That's awesome. Now, there's one instance in business that many people come to that causes them to stop in their tracks, and that's the point of sale. And I know that a lot of people listening run into that problem. You know, I speak with a lot of women who are brilliant and have so much to offer, yet still feel their energy shifting down when it's time to receive, when it's time to ask to be paid for services. What's going on there, and how can we smash through it?
Well, what hopefully isn't going on there is that they're selling something that's not of value. But assuming they are selling something that is of value, it's really just a matter of confidence. Maybe they're the type of person who wouldn't invest in a program. Maybe they're the type of person who thinks that it's a lot of money for the program. As long as they believe in it. Now, if they don't believe in it, it's time to shift to something else. I mean, if that's the reason, then by all means they should stand behind something that they can really stand behind, that they really believe in. But if they've gotten over that gap, if they've actually got something they believe in, the next thing is for them to believe in themselves and the ability that they have to sell something. And when you sell something that's good, you're just helping someone else. So they've got to get over the idea that they're hurting someone by taking their money and realize they're actually helping them by helping them invest in something that's going to really benefit them. And so that comes down to confidence. And that's usually the first thing I work on with someone in a hypnotherapy session, confidence.
That's a big one, really. That's such a. It's shown up a lot here. It's been one of the universal themes of this event is self-doubt and confidence and feeling like you're a needle in a haystack when you've got an important message that you want to get out there. And where does the law of attraction come into play? How do hypnosis and the law of attraction work together?
Well, Joe Vitale and I do a lot of things together. We create a lot of products together that help a lot of people. And so we asked ourselves that question a while ago. Since he's a law of attraction expert, I'm a hypnosis expert. And really what happens is people start to doubt that the law of attraction is real. They start to doubt that they're ever going to get whatever they're focusing on. And because of that, hypnosis is a great addition to the equation because hypnosis gives you that edge. It allows you to bypass your critical factor, your conscious mind that's saying, well, I'm not rich. I never have been. I probably won't be. That's conscious mind thinking. Your subconscious mind, as long as it can get programmed for success, it's going to be on autopilot. So that's where hypnosis comes in, to help you get that edge that you need to stop listening to those voices that say, I can't, and just start doing and believing and making it real.
I can see that, absolutely. And I think intuition is something else that a lot of people get confused about or shy away from trusting. And one of the reasons that I hear a lot is trying to decipher between resistance that you're meant to push through or true intuitive message that you need to hold back, those true intuitive nudges that are meant to keep you safe. How do we tell the difference?
That's a great question. I mean, I remember a few years back I was going to go to a charity event, and all of us involved were walking around the streets of New York, and we couldn't find, well, I say we weren't finding the address, and one person in the crowd said, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be. And I didn't look at it that way at all. I just thought we were lost. And when we called the place, we found that we were right outside their door. We didn't even realize it. So sometimes you think that you're getting an intuitive hit when you're just lost or you're almost there and you don't realize it. So some people look at that as an excuse to give up. They say, well, that's a sign from the universe that I shouldn't persist. And it can be really difficult to tell the difference. Who knows? Maybe that could have gone another way. Maybe that was a sign or could have been a sign that we shouldn't have gone there. But I'm so determined, and I'd flown all the way to New York just to do it, so I wasn't going to let it go. My advice is if you've got an internal compass that says you want to do certain things, then do them. If something comes up, push through it. I think it's Donald Trump who says when there's a brick wall in front of you, go through it. You've got to keep moving forward. People who don't accomplish the goals are the ones who see everything as a sign. Oh, that's a sign I shouldn't do this. That's a sign I shouldn't do that. You've got to realize that you've got to have a set of targets that you're after in your life, a set of goals, and that you're going to reach them. And anything that looks like it's a sign that you shouldn't do it is probably just an obstacle. Now, if you feel in your heart that you're moving toward a goal that isn't in sync with what you believe, in other words, if you want to be a lawyer and your parents want you to be a doctor, well, that requires you to just have a little heart-to-heart with your parents and say, look, that's not for me. This is for me. So it's really all about your goals and what you want and make sure that you're internally aligned.
That's really good advice. I think a lot of times people use that so-called intuitive nudge as an excuse to stay safe, and to not, reach for the stars. So that's great advice. I thank you for that. And, I want to ask about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, because I think it's something that's so powerful and more people are becoming familiar. But I had one lady that said to me, just the name sounds intimidating. So can you break it down for us, kind of in layman's terms? What is it? How can we use it ourselves to sort of program our inner millionaire or attract those opportunities and that abundance into our lives?
Well, neuro-linguistic programming is a huge body of knowledge. It was created by Richard Bandler and John Grinder in the late 70s, early 80s primarily, and it's a body of knowledge that's being added to every day. And there's really no standard. For example, if you become an NLP practitioner and you want to add something to the body of knowledge, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. There's no council of NLP or anything like that governing it, so anyone can add to it at any time. So that's why it's so daunting. But even the original body of work is is huge. I mean, there's a lot to know. But if you boil it down at its essence, I would say it's about the idea of pairing things together, associations. For example, if you see the police lights in your rearview mirror, you probably start to sweat a little bit, maybe your heart rate goes up, and maybe your breathing increases, and you have a reaction, and maybe the cop car will go right around you. But maybe in the past, it's led to something else where you got pulled over and you got a traffic ticket. So we create associations. Well, people create associations saying that rich people are evil, for example. Maybe their parents said that rich people are evil, or they create an association that, cake is a comfort food, and cake is their friend, or a cigarette is their friend. These are associations. So NLP attempts to change those associations. A cigarette is not your friend. Cake should not be comfort food. A cop light in the rearview mirror may not mean anything. These associations can be changed, and so NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, seeks to offer ways to sort of rewire the associations that you have. Now, the body of knowledge is far more robust than that, far more complicated than that. Yes, it can be daunting, but if I had to boil it down to its essence, I would say it's about associations and changing those into more resourceful associations.
That's great. I love how you put that, because it really, if I had to say it in the most simplistic way I could think of, is we make a lot of stuff up. Right?
Absolutely. I think Richard Bandler would love that.
I want to ask you about one of the things that you offer is about rapid decision making, and I think that's so important whether you're a business owner or not. We are often faced with having to make a decision, and neither path is the obvious choice. Can you shed some light on that for us, and maybe give us a step or two that you would use to make a sound decision?
Sure. Well, really, again, it's about being in tune with what you want. And once you're in tune with what you want, the decisions become easy. If you have a goal in mind, then the decisions are really secondary. They're just what happens in order to get you a goal. Now, if you're deciding between two things you really don't want anyway because they don't serve the greater good or you in any way, then that's where people usually find that they're stuck. So you've really got to examine, is this a decision that you really want to make? Are the choices that you have really the choices that you want? If not, then how about letting it all go? If it is something that's aligned with your passion, you've got two great choices. Let's say you're going to medical school, to use that analogy again. You've got two great medical schools to choose from. Then it really becomes just a matter of you making a decision. So when we talk about rapid decision making, that's the category we're talking about. Decisions within the realm of things that benefit people. So it's really about letting go of fear. Fear, I move there and this could happen. Oh, I move there and that could happen. Yeah, you can move anywhere and anything could happen. That's just the way life is. So it's all about confidence, letting go of fear, and just going for it. That's what the sessions are about.
So what is your take on, for instance, weighing two decisions, and one will bring you peace and one won't? I've heard a lot of ways to make sure it's coming from your intuition or getting in touch more with your intuition. Does meditation come into play there?
Oh, absolutely. Know thyself. That's the best advice I've ever heard. You've got to know yourself, and one of the best ways to know yourself and what you want is intuition. I mean, that's a very powerful way. Another way is a pendulum. I know that sounds a little hocus pocus, but if you have a pendulum and you can draw two axes on a piece of paper, one line one way, one the other, like a plus sign, hold the pendulum in the middle of it, the origin where they both cross, and one line represents one decision, one represents the other. Just ask yourself which one you prefer. And your subconscious mind will cause your hand to move the pendulum, nothing metaphysical about it. Your subconscious mind will cause your hand to move the pendulum in the direction of your real feeling, your real choice, what you really want to do.
That's awesome. And I'm guessing it can also be really helpful. I know it is because I've done it myself, but as far as inspiration and creativity, one of the things that somebody just said to me the other day is, I'm on a lot of mailing lists and it just seems like everybody's turning out so much content. What if I run out? What if I run out of ideas or things to say? I'm guessing what you're talking about is a great way to sort of open the floodgates of your gifts and your creativity, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, having written 25 books and having made 9,000 hypnosis recordings, I'm just getting started. So you're not going to run out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you're not worried about running out. I can tell.
No, I have new ideas every day.
That's great. Yeah, and I mean, I know myself, I resisted meditation for years. It was something other people did, and once I did it, I couldn't believe the benefits. I mean, not just inner peace and all that stuff, but I mean, I had book titles come to me. I mean, it really quiets the mental chatter, and so that you can hear what you need to hear, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I want to ask about you have something else also that really struck a chord with me, and that was how to stop being a doormat. And whether, again, whether you're a business owner or just in life, so many of us end up being martyrs, and there's such a fine line there, I think, between a martyr and what's classified as a doormat, and we tend to put everybody else's needs before our own, and this is also where that money story comes into play. We get people who say, well, as soon as somebody says I can't afford you, I stop. I don't want to feel that I'm manipulating them into spending money they don't have. So what's your take on that? How do we, A, sort of stop being that doormat, and B, really help them get past their money story and us get past ours?
Well, stop being a doormat happens, again, with confidence. Building up confidence to realize that you don't deserve to be abused in any way. And getting past that salesperson idea, you have to realize that, like I said earlier, you've got to believe in what you're selling, what you're promoting. And if it's really something that's going to be good for someone, then the real challenge is, again, confidence, because it's something that's good for someone, so why wouldn't you want them to have it? The only thing is there needs to be an exchange of energy, your information for their money. Their money comes to you, your information goes to them. So I think that might be one of the best ways to overcome that, is to start looking at it that way. It's equal value. If you're a friend of mine said a while back, about 10 years ago to me, he said the price is only an issue in the absence of value. So if you're not offering value, then yeah, maybe price is out of line. But everything's got a value, and you can assign a monetary value to a lot of valuable information because it's going to help someone make money or streamline their life or what have you. So part of it is intellectual. They have to realize what's really going on, the exchange. And the other part of it is just getting over that lack of confidence and all those money hang-ups, those hang-ups about, if I take money from people, I'm not a good person. You've got to let go of that and realize the value exchange that's going on.
So if you had to, for instance, give somebody a blueprint, something that our listeners could, for instance, start doing tomorrow that would be sort of a routine that would get them in that confident frame of mind and sort of get through that self-doubt block, what is something they can take away and start doing tomorrow that would help that issue?
Well, again, I like affirmations, so that should be the core of the program that they start doing themselves. You can write them on the mirror. You can write them with one of those black Sharpie pens. And by the way, you can rub them off with one of those green scrubby pads with no abrasive powder, just green Sharpie pad, green scrubby pad and water. So you can write on your mirror with what you think is a permanent marker, but it won't be permanent. Write those affirmations, write them in the here and now, and make them very specific. I have $100,000 in the bank, for example. That could be a great affirmation, or whatever number is appropriate for them, for their next level. Another thing that I like to do is, of course, self-hypnosis. I use my own recordings, but you can make a recording for yourself where you're putting yourself into a hypnotic trance and you're listening to it every night as you go to sleep. Between those two things, you can become a powerhouse pretty quickly, between affirmations in the daytime and hypnosis in the nighttime.
That's awesome. Thank you. We're almost out of time, but I want to ask one more question, because you have worked with some of the most successful people in the world, and you are one of them as well. I'm going to say, because I'm sure there's more than one, what are the common traits among highly successful people that keep them in the flow of receiving, even when things take a dip for a while? How do they keep coming back and sustaining that success?
Well, it's really about passion. You've got to do something that you believe in. You're not going to be able to sustain something that you don't believe in. If you're doing something you don't believe in, the first time a storm comes, you're going to say, forget it. The storm came, I'm out of here. That's when people abandon the ship. That's when people give up, when they're doing something they don't really believe in anyway. If you believe in it, if it's your passion, if you feel that's what you were put here on this planet to do, that's where your power comes from. And that comes from honesty. And honesty comes from looking at your parents and your friends and saying, I know you want me to do this, but I'm going to do that. My parents wanted me to major in business and minor in computers because in 1985 when I started college, that was a legitimate minor, computers. It wasn't the diversified field it is now, which is called computers. So they wanted me to do that. I said, no, I'm going to go to the University of Florida and study psychology, and that's where I started my undergraduate work in psychology. And so I did what I wanted to do, and that's made all the difference, really. And so these people who you see as successful and sticking with it and doing all that are doing so because they believe in whatever it is they're doing. And I want to tell you, in most cases, it's not about money. They're not doing it for money. They would do it for free. And when you find something that you believe in so much that you would do it for free, whether it's being a doctor, a lawyer, a person who picks up trash, a painter, a writer, whatever it is, if you would do it for free, you're that passionate about it, and you get up excited about it every day, that's the thing that's going to put you in league with those people, the people who stick to it no matter what.
That's a great way to close. That's a great takeaway. Dr. Steve, thank you so much. This was awesome. I think we all are feeling very lucky to have picked your brain a little bit. So how can everybody get in touch with you or check out the programs and books you have to offer? I mean, there's truly something for everybody on your site. Where should they go?
They can just go to my site, as you mentioned. It's just my name, Steve G. Jones. So it's stevegjones.com. And I have a special bonus for your listeners. It's a free recording for tapping into your inner millionaire.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, and we look forward to what's next.
Well, thank you. My pleasure.